Hello and welcome to BOT. Nidal, Lakshit, Suman, and Manthan meet here to talk about the bits of tech as it relates to digital transformation. Tune in and enjoy. Hello, everyone. We are back. This marks a huge milestone in what we started initially. This is the 10th podcast, meaning the 10th hour of content that we are recording right now, which will get published, which I absolutely love. Uh, the perspective here is that there was absolutely nothing. It was a WhatsApp group where we started, where we were like, hey, I think we should do a podcast. And for three other people jumped in, we became four and like, let's just do this, right? And 10th today. So little victories, but always good to celebrate. With that, if this conversation was being analyzed, right? Because this conversation will be put up there in a social forum, meaning subject to public access. If this conversation was being analyzed, then there could be dashboards out there which would get an uptick of saying that these people have created these many hours of content, right? Where analytics would be the category and hours of content would be the metric, right? There could very well be a dashboard like this out there, which is just fetching public information on who is doing what. And that in itself is acting as a feed to that company. Where am I going at with this? Um, the the point being that today's podcast is about social listening, meaning whatever is out there on social media can be listened to. And listening is not literal in here. It basically means that you're able to fetch the information which is available publicly on social media and make sense of that. Which frankly to me seemed like a far-fetched idea just a couple of years ago, right? Imagine getting one Instagram feed or one LinkedIn feed and analyzing what people are thinking in there and then making sense out of that data. I think, in my personal opinion, this is not to claim, but the social media data, which is public, could be the dirtiest in terms of data structure, right? I could be posting five paragraphs in my experience on my wall. Somebody could be doing five words. Somebody could be doing a video. Somebody could be doing an audio or a slideshow. All of this combines to make a social media post. And then the responsibility is then given to the tools which are built to have intelligence. And remember, I'm talking about 5 years ago when AI still wasn't a thing, right? When we were not building those algorithms which would just go and do things magically. So um, how have we evolved into making sense of this, in my own terms, dirty data? Because like unstructured data, if you think of it technically, how do you structure it and then make sense of it is the conversation today. Let's see what everyone thinks, and then we can talk more about it.
Great thoughts, Manthan. Thanks for kicking us off. Definitely, happy to be here on after several episodes. So if you are listening in, if you have been getting some value out of like listening to the four of us rant, please do let us know, and we'd love to hear more about what you think. That said, social listening is definitely a crucial piece in understanding how consumers behave, how they think about a brand, what are the challenges they are facing. It especially addresses the why behind, how certain consumers behave. And that's why it's very important for organizations to collect that data, process that information. It might be very tricky, like Manthan said, the data could be in different forms and shapes. Um, Down the line, a mature social listening program would have a lot of processing rules, set of steps to clean up the data and put it into a certain format. Eventually, it would maybe be a report or an infographic or a slide deck or even a dashboard. It could feed into a dashboard the insights that come out of the social listening data, but cleaning up that data, getting it from different sources, There are certain challenges. Obviously, certain platforms are more accessible than others. So all of those like sort of build into the picture of putting this together. But it is crucial data, right? Especially because it's the why. Now, if you would expect a consumer to reveal their honest feelings in a survey or a feedback form, that is expecting too much, because a lot of the users end up not even like addressing the feedback form or even like completely ignoring it. They might like vent out their frustrations on social platforms, right? We know that Twitter or LinkedIn these days can be used as a platform for venting out frustration against a bad experience somebody had with a brand, for example, and leading to negative PR for the brand. So that's just an example. There can be different other use cases where you can use social listening to get valuable insights. That's just my couple of thoughts to get us started here.
Absolutely. So, firstly, I just want our viewers, audiences, our friends who is either listening or watching this podcast right now, please subscribe and like. Comment so that we understand how your sentiments are about the podcast. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? And trust me, we are not really a very big brand yet, that we might ask you to please take down your post because we might be impacted, and people might have a specific perception about bot as a podcast. We don't want that later on, but right now we are absolutely free. You can come and stab us. We are all good as long as you come and post a comment. So, having said that, um, a very interesting market study says that this social media market is set to grow from $7 billion in 2023 to $14 billion in 2028. And it is very logical. Why? Because of two things. The first being the amount of uh, internet people have been using, be it rural or urban. There's no, I think, disparity right now. The second is also adoption of this particular market by various sectors like government, investment sector, also as an example, right? So it's a very interesting space, quite honestly. What I recall, as Nidal and Manthan was speaking about, right, sentiment analysis and all, people post their customer experiences and feedback on LinkedIn. So that's not really a platform that I may or may not expect to see such kind of experiences to be posted. So let me just give you, because it's already in public, so I don't really have to worry. Blinkit is an online delivery platform in India. So people post positive and negative experiences, and you will always find the brand responding to it, responding to their post, even if it's in the most generic manner, because they care. A second is they might want to show that they care because it's very generic in response. We don't know how to read that, but they do respond to it. On the other side, if we look at Instagram, there are a lot of social influencers who review a product, let's say a beauty product, and say that they may not like it, and the brand approaches and says that take down the post, and then obviously they post that on social media as well. So brands have become so brand conscious, obviously, because everything is out there on social media. And if the thread of negative sentiments or comments increases, it might impact their sales. It's very logical because 90% of consumer report states that people look at the reviews and ratings before purchasing a product, right? All of us do. We might go on the brand's website itself or Amazon or any e-commerce platform which actually sells that product. So it's sentimentally yin yang. I just came up with this out of nowhere, but it's a very interesting space right now for us to look after.
All right. Thanks, Suman. How many of you remember the tweets from Mumbai police? Uh, regarding the one set
Yeah,
regarding World Cup when a team beats another. The one from India
yeah,
versus USA, where they said that we are hearing too many sounds coming from the windows, either broken TVs or firecrackers, fireworks. Hope you're listening to it to the NYPD police. They actually tagged the NYPD police. So that's where the social media game is reaching nowadays. Social media, social listening, in fact, has personified brands. Quite literally, they now have social media managers who properly handle their specific brand handles. When I say brand handles, it means they are making sure that people resonate with a certain brand as a person, uh, so that they feel more relatable with them. They find them more Gen Z or Gen Y-ish to their taste, and because and the whole game about brand is to ensure that people find it relatable and relevant for themselves and personalized. The more personalized, the more relevant, the more relatable, the more they will be loyal to that brand. Customer advocacy is one of the best, is one of the most critical phases in a customer lifecycle journey to crack, because that is when a person has purchased a product from you, product or service from you, and are now in the position where they will dictate terms on how they use it, what they say about it, whether they do word of mouth, whether they promote your brand to the next customer. Because this is what actually lowers your CAC at the end of the day and nothing else. The best way to lower your CAC is having a good and satisfied customer. Which is why it is important that brands continuously create their own handles on the social media, on specific social media sites like Twitter, X, say for example even Instagram for that matter. Reddit is one such place. Most SaaS companies you will find also use some specific developer forums like Reddit. There was one, I think, something related to code, so a lot of developer centric platforms as well, to ensure that the product feedbacks are being collected. You'll be surprised on how many review forums like G2 and other also collect certain social media feedback in order to ensure they provide ratings. So these review aggregators, as I would call it, or SaaS platform rating aggregators, as I would call it, they actually take into account the social media analysis of the sentiment analysis of the customer, to provide scores to the platform to see what their summarized uh, positive and negative sentiments are, in order to assign certain scores or competitive intelligence to each brand, because brands are performing in a competitive market. Some advancements that I've observed in social media analysis is this, is the introduction of Gen AI or LLM based summarization of for sentiment analysis. This, unlike structured data, uh, social media listening is completely unstructured. It is all about natural language processing. In one of our previous episodes, we've also talked about natural language processing, how it is classified, how it is labeled. It's a strenuous task. We've done it. It is a strenuous task, because the biggest problem that you have to do with an NLP is labeling the text. You have to literally, before the advent of these LLM models, we had to literally sit down, look at some of the comments ourselves, label text, label words and keywords as positive, negative, and then based on the frequency and occurrences, would we run the data model to check how they would be assigned scores, and based on the weightage and the impact that it has. Um AI has come to to so much extent right now that they have actually assigned, enabled driving correlation with certain keywords to their sales, meaning they can actually now predict that if their sentiment score is say point 0.4, point 0.5 versus something something, how would the sales be impacted in the next quarter? And they're using Gen AI to actually summarize for the business what's the general market sentiment for the brand. It is helping them drive their new everything new, like new opportunities in a new market, new product development, new feature development, what people are talking about, how they can improve, and how they can uh, continue to serve their customers to the best of their ability. Uh, I'd like to listen more from you before we talk more about how we measure it. But yeah, over to you guys.
Yeah, some
yeah. I mean, a quick interjection, Nidal. it just brings back a fond memory. Where I guess the three of us collaborated on a project where some interns were newly brought into the organization, and their entire job was, here is an Excel sheet of unstructured data, add a column, and mark it as green, red, or yellow, right? I think we did one of those things together, and that was probably the first time we actually had to do something related to social listening, such that it can be fed to an NLP for a huge IT manufacturing giant. I have more things to say, but I just thought of interjecting with this project thing that came to my mind.
I was actually going to refer the same example, right? So this is always my favorite, like, talking about experiences firsthand about a certain topic. And this use case definitely came to mind. You can imagine, right, how much manual effort goes into individually classifying, each and every comment. And that used to be manual effort, like, several hours spent. It actually costs for any organization that tries to get this done. It increases the cost in terms of, be it the team members resource hours being spent on that initiative, right? So I know that Lakshit just mentioned a lot of advanced use cases, like, for example, a certain company looking at a certain sentiment score and how much impact it can have, looking at historical trends as well as predictions, what could be the impact it could have in, and actually convert that sentiment score into a dollar value, right? So we do have those advanced use cases. We have AI now, which unlocks a lot of opportunities. If we had some of these, easily accessible AI models, like even look at ChatGPT, for example, right? For starters, we would not have required maybe 5 interns. We would probably require one intern who could run some prompts and get that information, right? You have, um, because you mentioned, we used to put that into an Excel sheet into different cells. We now have plugins which have, integrations that you just write a prompt within your Excel sheet, not even within a chat GPT UI, right? You can use the plugins to just, instead of looking for a formula for classification, you can just use a prompt and the AI can do the classification for you, right? So that just talks about the efficiency in the modern day with access to a lot of free solutions, right? Not even huge cost solutions, that helps speed up the process. That said, yes, I when I was an intern myself, I remember there was, another project where I was part of a digital media agency and monitoring comments, reactions live. For example, Twitter mentions of a brand on a specific day, and I think it was a day that was very relevant to that brand. So we were monitoring brand mentions on that day and trying to, find meaningful conversations where, as a brand, you could respond and say, and point them to a certain call to action. And we ended up, I was an intern. I got pretty excited about the end outcome we achieved, which was, the brand became a trending keyword within India, right? Within all of India, while we were doing that effort, just from like morning till evening. So it was just a day that we were doing this. But essentially, we're looking for mentions of that specific set of keywords and then addressing the ones that where it would make sense to, like, pitch in a specific call to action. And what we found out was also that it is not an easy job to find the right instances where you could respond. You could, if you had automated it, you could easily find several, areas where you are just like, the keyword is not in the right context and you're like responding to it, right? So it wouldn't make sense. It would probably lead to a different situation that you would have intended. But yeah, those are like a couple of projects. The other project I remember working on is a voice of consumer project. Like Lakshit mentioned, there were several data sources, even product review websites, couple of them at least, maybe sources like, Bazaar Voice, or, social media platforms, getting comments analyzed, sentiment scores attached, looking at the keywords that are being mentioned the most. So, putting together a word cloud those would be the sort of output you would put together, and then which are the key insights that you get. The most amount of mentions could probably mean either something good, people are maybe excited, happy about a certain aspect of a product, or they might be pissed off about something, right? So all of those insights were crucial. I'll end this with one of my favorite examples of Nike as a brand using social listening to identify one of the challenges that end users were facing with a certain brand, with a certain product. Sorry, they found out that through social listening, they found out that the shoes, a specific line of shoes, was not durable. Right, it had quality issues, and then Nike used that feedback to enhance the durability of that product, and launched another version which led to a lot of rave reviews about that line of shoes. So that is just one of my favorite examples. But yeah, I'd love to hear what the rest of the crew here thinks.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about unstructured data because we understand the pain of working with it. So my understanding, and I would like to learn a bit more from you all because I have limited experience in this space. I might have worked in a very small POC kind of a project. So one of the key challenges is obviously the data volume that you're working with, right? There's going to be multiple data volume. How do you actually handle that? And then the subsequent step is going to be noise filtering, correct? I know for sure that Nidal and Manthan do speak sarcastically sometimes. So how would you even, classify those sarcastic comments, which could be positive or negative uh, for a product?
Just
Whereas people like
just a quick
Lakshit,
example of that is saying Lakshit is beautiful. So yeah.
Lakshit is indeed beautiful, guys. Please have a look on his LinkedIn profile or Facebook, or you can just connect with him on Instagram anywhere for that matter. So yes, noise filtering is is also very crucial. As much as easy it sounds that hey, we would segment all the sentiments reviews into positive, negative, and neutral. It's really not that easy, correct? And that's why we have various tools like Brandwatch, Sprout Social, Mention, etc., to enable us in this process. Um, the third thing that I am really inquisitive about is that how do we actually um, after analyzing everything, integrated back with our systems, like let's say an analytics data or a CRM data. How would you do that? Because then eventually that would help us in actually seeing the sentiment accuracy where we are at, because we want to improve our sentiment accuracy, right? So if it was, let's say, 20% positive, we want to improve that to 40% positive as a brand. So I would really be interested in understanding all of that. And obviously, there are a lot of use cases that brands work with. One is getting to know the sentiment of their existing product. The other is if they're launching a new product, they might um, just do a soft launch and try to understand the reviews. Uh, yeah,
I mean, because every one of us is touching at it, let me take a step back and talk about the ecosystem and how it developed, right? Because that's the most intriguing part to me when I started thinking about social listening as a topic on what I wanted to speak about, right? Um, and the interesting aspect here is that there's an ecosystem, right, which is analytics. There is an ecosystem which is online. There is an ecosystem which is user behavior. All of that got developed. The fun about being in tech is that no matter how much tech you do, at the end of the day, you are still bound to be where all the users are at. In my understanding, that is what gives birth to concepts like social listening and social analysis and many others. Why did this even occur? Is because a billion people, or maybe a few billion people, are on Instagram, just as an example, right? Maybe one of us can Google what the latest Instagram unique user count is. I'm sure it is in billions, right? If a billion users are on a given app, then as a brand, I'm bound to think that, hey, it is highly likely that my target audience is in there, right? What can I do here is the question that the topmost exec will ask, right? What they care about is integration with these social media apps like Instagram, so that you can find out and or reach to your existing customer, right? Or find new customers, whichever it is, because these are straight revenue opportunities or straight opportunities to understand feedback from your existing customers, right? The business case can be any, but basically a brand is bound to go where the customer is going. To simplify the statement, why do we have advertisements in a bus, right? If you travel in a public bus or in a public train, we have advertisements there, right? Why is it so? Because there is enough footfall there, and it is highly likely that certain sort of people travel at a certain point of time who might be interested in a certain thing. That's why we see ads there. I think this is how that ecosystem developed. And as soon as an ecosystem develops, new tools are bound to come in picture, right? One of the very interesting, this is reverse spin of what is it called, forward integration, right? So the forward integration tool that came in was, hey, we are a company, we provide all the survey results to you, right? And if you are an e-commerce site, integrate our company, let's say surveys X, whatever that website is, integrate our API on your product page and get the rating of your product right there, not only on your site, but from X platforms, right? That in itself became a company. Think about it, like stars, meaning customer reviews out of 5, was just a concept that came in, and it became so big that there are people who are employed just to do that within that ecosystem, and that there is an entire company which I'm sure has X million-dollar valuation, right? Which is doing only this. Um, this is what is the most interesting part for me. Like, how can a concept become so big that it needs a company and that other companies need it, so that the consumer can be reached to, right, in the easiest way? Which brings me to my second point of what Suman was alluding to. How would you then go about connecting the dots to understanding that if this person has been posting X complaints on a social media platform like LinkedIn or X, earlier Twitter, um, then how do I go about reaching out to this customer so that eventually this customer's score of my service and or product becomes better, right? Those questions can only be answered if you knew who that person was. I could give a complaint number on a LinkedIn post to a brand and say that, hey, I had a bad service, but that's a one-on-one interaction. What if a million people had problems and were posting on different sections, right, of social media in different ways, right? How would you go on about analyzing that data and connecting the dots back? Today, I think there is a gap in the system of directly being able to identify who those people are and what they need, unless an identifier was given, meaning a complaint number or a customer number or whatever it is. There are mechanisms to do it, but I'll dwell more into it um, after taking a little break and letting someone else speak first.
Yes, I would just like to make a single point. Manthan mentioned that we might have billion users or few billion users in Instagram. So I just looked up just to check. So as per the Rekha Post and HubPost blog, as of early to 2024, Instagram has approximately 2 billion monthly active users globally. They're earning a lot. Zuckerberg is definitely earning a lot. Uh, and that's the fourth popular social media platform. First is Facebook. So he's definitely earning more than even I can comprehend. Second being YouTube, and third being WhatsApp, fourth being Instagram, right? And in terms of specific region, maximum users are based out of India. So we are actually making him rich. All right, just wanted to quote that.
Yeah, great stats. Three out of those, interestingly, 3 out of those 4 platforms you mentioned are owned by Meta. So, that definitely gives any brand, a reason to be there, be present there socially as well as to listen actively, right? I just remembered another use case. So when you asked a very interesting question earlier, once you have all of that data, what would you like do out of it, right? Curious to hear what are some of the end use cases. So I know Manthan also partly answered this question, but one of the other use cases I can think of is, for example, in a call center, if you just looked at all of the data that is, we already talked about voice analytics, video analytics in one of our earlier um, recordings, but just to think about if all of the words that were processed, you would get a lot of insights around what are the questions that are commonly being asked. Now, once you get those insights, what could be an immediate next step, right? You could either do a better job of documenting the FAQ section on your website, including some of those questions, or if you are using, an automated system for routing the callers, you could include a section that maybe routes to a different team that has a high volume of requests, right? So you could use that as an input to adjust the routing. So that's just a random use case. There are plenty of other use cases which are more complex, which are not so basic either. But yeah, that's just one that jumped at me.
Yeah. So, Lal, as you mentioned, advanced use cases. Let's dive deeper into some of them. One of the most challenging, complex, and AI intensive, one of the best advanced use cases that is being solved by AI today is vernacular analysis. Meaning, see, most of us are quite used to doing sentiment analysis in English. Like we go to these platforms, we assume that the world talks only in English, which is really not the case, or they interact with it. Uh, People have different languages, many countries. India itself has 1,000 languages. Uh, Social media platforms have now become inclusive to ensure that they provide their regional users with capability to write and type in their own language. So you can type in Hindi, you can type in Punjabi, you can type in Kannada, you can type in Telugu, Tamil, and maybe even Spanish, French, Italian for that matter. You can have languages written like Hindi words written in Hindi, Italian words written in English. So those kind of use cases are also there where people are conversing in English alphabets, but the language is not English. It's a different language. It's simply translating that in English. So for somebody as we already talked about interns, like how many interns would you then put on in your office? Somebody who's multilinguistic, who can understand, let's say, so many languages, understand their specific scripts, or even if not understand the script, they understand those words in English, classify those texts, label them, and then do an analysis. One idea could be you do region by region analysis, meaning you put different interns for different languages uh, and ensure then those sentiment scores sit in silo. Or you can do what companies like Netflix, Nike, global brands like Netflix, Nike, McD, Wendy's, these folk, Fenty Beauty, these guys do is, and create a holistic system in their own in-house, wherein wherein they can do all of these vernacular analysis, understand the localized needs between each community. So there are different communities in the world that uses a product, and so they can classify that, hey, beyond positive and negative reviews, what are people asking for? What are people in India? How is the content consumption in India different from content consumption in, let's say, America? Uh, what are the tier one, tier two, tier three consumption patterns? Uh, as someone already mentioned, the one of like on social media, most of the users are from India. But what we need to understand is that most of those users who are from India are actually from tier two and tier three cities. Like the combination of that is much larger, which means the vernacular analysis becomes even more important and even more critical. This is where brands who also engage with a lot of influencers, and influencers marketing itself is now a huge business. In fact, one of the biggest business about social media listening. They actually listen to social media analysis, trends, their followers, their initial sentiment analysis about influencers to strategize on which are the right influencers for a brand to synergize with, to partner with, in order to move their brand forward. And they also then work with them to ensure that these influencers are marketing the products in different regions, like rightly. If you remember, one Diwali ad by Shah Rukh Khan, where he actually, it was an AI generated ad. uh, I think it was for Cadbury, wherein they talked about the local stores in various different languages, and it was an AI generated video where you could put yourself in, you could work with them, you could put your face in that ad. You could even choose which language to promote, and you could even put in some local store extensions. So when the ad was played even on TV or on YouTube, it will actually tell you which is the nearest store that you should go and buy local from. Imagine the power of that social media listening, the social media analysis, and just the power of AI and tech combining with the human sentiment to provide an experience that can boost a country's economy to that extent is huge. So my take on advanced use cases for social media listening combined with the power of AI is amazing. Is like it's an eye opening and it's quite magical, frankly, to go about.
I mean, um, let's my interjection to that point, Lakshit, is that the job of an intern has changed now, right? With AI being in picture, I might have needed like 100 interns for translating words from N languages to English, right? At a point of time, now the job of an intern is to write a code, integrate the AI in such a way that all words are by default first translated into English, right? Equivalent, and then the analysis begins, right? So, arguably, the job of an intern, and this intern could be any position, anybody, we are just quoting an intern in this example, has changed. Has changed to being able to develop such models that those models are the interns when the intern leaves, right? That's the perspective shift that I'm seeing. Um, and it is only these models and integration with other technologies that is enabling us to be able to go vernacular as far as data analysis is concerned, right? So that is like everything has suddenly become possible now that there is an algorithm for everything. I think there is an algorithm for writing an algorithm, right? That's how advanced things have become. Um, the other aspect which I wanted to finish my thought on was how data is being connected, or the gap that I was talking about, right? Which is an actual life use case. So people who are into this job, they'd find this to be interesting, possibly that in my understanding, the social media bubble, the data of social media and or social listening, social analysis, whatever category you would call it, is a separate dashboard in many organizations today, right? To give a blanket statement like that could be dangerous, but I'm just saying that it is um, it is a huge part of why people would want to go and get that data. But then in terms of usability, the integration becomes challenging if it is a huge organization, right? The kind of brands we are naming, their unstructured data then becoming structured, that process in itself could take some while, and then integrating that into a dashboard where you are trying to find out new customers or you're trying to do lookalike modeling, that becomes a huge project on its own and a cost on its own, right? So being able to use this and connecting the dots is one challenge. Let's say that you decide to connect the dots, right? All your organization has allowed for everything, you have the budget. I can see two ways of solving this. In a very traditional sense, first party and third party way of solving this, right? First party being, when I sign up, you ask for my Instagram handle, you ask for my X handle, whatever that is. So now when I log into your website before making a purchase, or if I give some sort of information which is an identifier, then you already have my social handle, and there is a feed that is coming to this said organization from the third party, which is social listening feed. Now you know that this handle belongs to this email ID, right? That's like the first party approach of collecting the social handle of that person and integrating it with third party. That's one, the first way of solving it. The second is that the social media sites at times give incentivizes people for allowing them to use their identity and being able to resell that, right? So there are third party companies who just does this, meaning here are the people who stay, let's say, in Toronto and are of this age bracket, and here is what their sentimental analysis for, let's say, shaving products look like, right? And if that data were to be bought with the identifiers, then there are companies who are putting in that effort of taking explicit consent, meaning GDPR compliant, etc., GDPR, CCPA, or laws compliant, and then sharing that data, which happens to be a lower success rate, meaning most people may decline for sharing their email IDs, right? Or at times it could be so much hidden that you've accepted and you don't even know, right? But when this data comes in, the social data, it becomes so powerful that it can get integrated into any ecosystem. The use cases are valid for financial companies, banking organizations. For example, I had a bad transaction, right? And the bank never returned my money. That itself is an opportunity for another bank to send me an email saying, hey, if you open an account, you get a new iPad while you open the account. And we also have the refund system if a bad transaction happened, right? If that email came to me that day when I had a bad transaction, I'm highly likely to switch to that bank just on that basis, right? Because I'm so frustrated with the current bank. So this data can absolutely become a weapon if it was connected correctly. These are some thoughts I had.
Some great examples, Manthan. I did have a couple more, examples to share, not from a general use case of, for example, a brand using social listening for listening to the end users' concerns and things like that. There's a couple of other sort of categories, right? One that I can think of is disaster. During the time of a disaster or a crisis, how can, for example, a government agency look out for concerns? One example of this was during a hurricane in the U.S. The FEMA, which is an entity that is responsible for managing these types of natural disasters and crisis resolution. They actively monitored social media, looked out for distress calls, and that helped them to turn around requests for help very quickly by getting help, right? Another one I can think of, this has even been a movie in Malayalam. It The movie title is Virus. It's basically the Nipah outbreak that happened in Kerala, which was a contagious disease. And the key to find out how the virus spread is communication, looking at patterns, looking at mentions, looking at people's travel history, things like that, right? So all of that was also an area where social listening helped. Google also had a flu trends project, which was more around looking at mentions of flu in specific areas, looking at closer by areas where this is happening in a more condensed manner, and then thereby detecting outbreaks, and then passing on that information to agencies that can take the necessary action, right? So these are just like different use cases where it's for a social cause. It can help in the time of a crisis. Brands have also been very creative with, for example, doing crowdsourcing using social listening, right? Getting ideas from people about, like, Lace, I think, had a campaign around uh, do a give us a flavor or something like that, which was basically like to get inputs from people around, like what are the different flavors that people want to suggest, and getting that as input, right? um I think it was called Do Us a Flavor, right? Instead of Do Us a Favor. Coke had one called Share a Coke program, which was basically just to um, use personalized bottle campaigns, and to use that for more consumer engagement and sales. So these are just like additional examples I just thought of. um, I think um, with the advent of technology, with AI, with a lot of other changes in the space, there's going to be a lot more to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, great examples. The best ones. I mean, I was about to talk about the same, that how some of the brands are using social media for coming up with new product ideas. Uh, how they are also averting risk and disasters. Great plan. One other aspect of social media social listening that I've come to realize in recent times is how uh, you know the brands are integrating that into their proper marketing strategies. Like they are investing heavily, they are keeping separate budgets out for these social media listening handles to ensure to give you an example. I recently attended a conference uh, wherein the speaker just told us that what would be the fastest way to launch a new product. Let's just assume he said, "You suppose you don't have enough information about a market. You are running a restaurant. You want to launch a new recipe. You don't have enough information about the demand and supply for this new recipe. What would you do?" The idea was you create a recipe once, take some photos, see, understand that what would the real launch would look like, and actually place that recipe on the menu. Just put it out there. Just do it right now. Do it tomorrow in the next menu. Put that in the menu. Put some details. Put a photo. Redo your menu if you need to and see how many people order for it, how many people ask for it. Every time a person asks for it, simply say sold out. This will create more curiosity, more demand for it as well. So might as well say it's sold out. If you get enough number of orders, it means there's good sentiment and good demand for it. Might as well launch it. That is what also Lay's do as a flavor project was, or these new product developments are coming in where brands are now actually putting out their the brand strategies. You'll be surprised on how many brands and SaaS brands, in fact, I believe these there are open project plans. They SaaS companies have now put out their roadmaps in public forums where you can actually see what their plans for each feature release is in the next entire year. So a lot of these SaaS brands are doing it. They have public Jira, uh, pages, public Jira platforms where you can see uh, what are the feature releases, what are the documentation. So which is why I want to go take a step further into social listening and get more technical, where they are now directly engaging with people as not just the brand promoters but as the brand architects, I would say, in some cases as well, where they are now being inviting some of the more involved, some very tech savvy products, SaaS products are now inviting their users to actually help and work with their open code platforms. So they've publicized it. They've made their code platforms open code, open source platforms where they're inviting bugs. They're doing all of these hackathons, bug bashes, inviting the users to engage with them. This creates more engagement as well. If you remember, one of AutoCAD's strategy is it's not to really target the end user but target students, not because they can buy today but so that they can groom these students today so that they can buy tomorrow when they become executives. This has been a unique strategy uh, by AutoCAD. And likewise, to follow the strategy, what some of the SaaS companies are doing is that they're targeting these initial just out of college graduates who are now developers in certain companies today so that they can groom them as their potential and loyal customers so that they can buy their software tomorrow as enterprise products. Uh, like I said, public platforms, they're releasing their entire roadmaps out there, and they're making they're now taking the social media upping the social media game by ensuring they're not just using their users as brand advocates, but as brand architects, as their own employees, as their own partners of the brand, and making them feel more involved with the brand. And the more involved they feel, uh, the more engagement the brand gets, the more the trust, the better the business grows.
Yeah, I mean, in conclusion, I think the whole idea begins at the very first chapter we all might have studied in social sciences, that a man is a social being, right? Today we are on a platform in our phone, which is just a virtual world, but being social is at the core of who we are as living beings. And that, as a concept, leaves us with a lot on what analytics can do for where people are in terms of society, and go back and listen to what is being shared and posted, right? That's the whole idea. I think this is the fundamental of why social listening even exists as a concept, on top of all the tech, on top of everything else that we just spoke about. So all in all, a good conversation. I think this was fantastic. We will see you all in the next one. Thank you.